So today we are seeing a rise in serious health cases, especially industries like construction, where we have countertop fabrication and foundries. These are trades where we're cutting, grinding, and disturbing materials like concrete, engineering stone, and mortars that can release dangerous amounts of silica dust. This is not just a safety issue, it is a growing public concern. Workers are developing incurable conditions, sometimes as early as in their 30s and 40s. And even just after a few years of exposure, you can develop silicosis. So, today we're going to talk about how to protect your team, costly penalties, and how to meet your obligations under Cal OSHA silica standards. Whether you're a contractor, a shop owner, or part of an internal safety team, this session will give you real actionable strategies to keep your workforce safe and your business in compliance. So let's start with what respirable silica actually is. Crystalline silica is a natural stone occurring in minerals found in many materials we're working in today. Things like sand, concrete, stone, mortar, engineered stone. When we cut, grind, drill, or crush these materials, tiny particles are released in the air. These particles are called respirable because they are so small, they're less than 10 microns in diameter, to bypass the body's natural defense and lodge deep into our lungs. For reference, that's much smaller than a grain of sand, like at the beach, and even a human hair, which is around 70 microns thick. The problem is these particles are invisible and they stay airborne for a long time, making these easy to inhale without even us noticing. And because they're so small and persistent, they can cause health effects that include silicosis, lung cancer, and other respiratory diseases. You don't need high exposure, and even small repeated exposures over time can add up. And that's why understanding the control of RSC exposure is so critical. Let's talk about the health consequences of silica dust. And this is why the issue is so urgent. Most of us know illness links to silica is silicosis, a serious and irreversible lung disease. When respirable crystalline silica is inhaled, these particles are so fine, they travel deep into our lungs, way into the alveoli. A tiny air sac is responsible for the gas exchange. There they trigger an aggressive immune response. The body sends microphages to engulf the particles. Silica is so toxic that the immune cells die off in the process, releasing enzymes that inflame damage and surrounding tissue. Over time, this damage builds up into fibrosis, scarring, which reduces lung function that cannot be reduced or reversed. Silicosis is not the only concern. RSC is also classified as Group 1 carcinogen, the highest risk category, meaning there's no clear evidence in causing lung cancer in humans. It is also linked to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease called COPD, kidney disease, and autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. What makes this particularly dangerous is that symptoms don't appear until they damaged already severe, permanent. Many workers feel fine for years while their lungs are silently being damaged. The good news is all of these outcomes are preventable and the right controls and awareness in place. The biggest reason respirable crystalline silica is so dangerous is because it's so tiny and how easy it slips past the body's defense. Particles that are 10 micros or smaller are considered respirable. This means they're so small enough to pass through your nose, throat, and upper airway. And this makes their way deep into your lungs, like we talked about in the alveola, where oxygen takes place. To give you perspective, a human hair, like we talked about, is 7 micro thick. A common dust particle can be 20 to 50 micros more or more. This means a single silica particle is 7 times smaller than the strand of your hair, completely invisible to the eye and lightweight enough to suspend in the air for hours. This tiny size makes silica uniquely dangerous because your body doesn't have an easy way to clear it out. And once it embeds into your lung tissue, it doesn't dissolve or break down. It stays there permanently. The smaller the particle, the deeper the penetration, and the more likely it is to trigger common chronic inflammation, scarring, and long-term damage. That's why controlling dust is using proper respiratory protection is absolutely essential. So if you look at the graph here, it shows confirmed and projected silicosis cases in California. I wanted to make sure we're really talking about just California cases today because we're already seeing Cal OSHA shut down construction sites. I had a friend in the insurance industry, and he had me talk to the owner of the company because he got shut down for 3 months. He had no silica plan in place. He wasn't using the tools, which we're going to talk about later. So this is why it's so important we talk about California and how it's affecting all of us here in our companies. So far, we've already seen 230 confirmed cases and 14 deaths. As we see in the projection, we see up to 800 more cases and over 150 additional deaths expected in the next few years. These are not numbers, they are people that we value and love in our industry. It means starting with young families that really don't know how serious and dangerous dust can be. We had the silica program a few years ago that started, and now since it's getting more serious, Cal OSHA has adopted a emergency temporary standard, and a lot more. It expanded on the silica dust program. So one thing, it is making sure that respiratory protection, full face, and PAPR is required. Signs must be posted. Dry cutting and dry sweeping is prohibited for now on. We cannot do that anymore. And we have to use vacuums that have HEPA filters in them. We need to make sure also, this is new, that when we have an employee that has silicosis, we have to report that now, and it's going to be on the OSHA logs, and we need to report within 24 hours. So we need to make sure we're updating our programs, and we can now, like I talked about, that other company got shut down. Enforcement is out there, and we need to be aware of them just stopping by, because they can actually now just stop us right then. and we want to make sure we're in compliance. So that's why we're here today. We want to make sure you guys are successful in your companies and be successful in updating your program. So next, Cal/OSHA silica standards. We have exposure assessments. Employers must assess employee exposure levels using either performance or scheduled monitoring. Exposure control methods implement engineering and work practice controls to limit exposure. And we always want to make sure, we know as safety professionals, we want to use the hierarchy of control of using engineering first and so on. So even though PPE like PARs and things like that, we want to make sure we try to do engineering first. That's the safest. Respiratory protection, provide appropriate respiratory protection when controls cannot reduce exposures below PEL. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the PEL. Housekeeping, using methods that minimize the generation of silica dust, such as wet sweeping or HEPA filters. Offering medical examinations to employees that are exposed to the action level. Action level is AL for 30 or more days per year. And hazard communication. Inform and train employees about silica hazard and protective measures. So this is a great slide how we can see employees exposed are presumed to be more than the permissible exposure limit, 50 micrograms per cubic meter of air, averaged over an 8-hour shift. Initial employee exposures monitored must be done, repeated every 12 months. So we want to make sure that in the new silica program, that we are monitoring every 12 months. And this may not be instead or in conjunction with airborne exposure monitoring. So we see that this hits us really, can hit our bottom line, and emphasizing the real-world impact of non-compliance, including citations, penalties, and even shutting down your business. So for 2003, a concrete cutting company in California was fined $54,000 for failing to conduct exposure assessments and provide respiratory protection. Cal/OSHA can issue citations under serious, willful, and repeat with penalties up to $100,000 for cumulative violations. I also want to let you know if there's any safety managers out there that don't know how to talk to their CEO. I have worked with other companies. I've worked in construction for 10 years. And what it comes down to is you're saying, hey, I need some money to get, HEPA vacuums, things like that. And it's going to cost, say, 25 grand. And they're like, oh, that's too much. But when you can print out these citations and show them how much it's going to cost them. And then once not only that you get a violation, say you get a serious violation from Cal/OSHA, now you're going to be on their radar for the next 5 years. It could turn into a willful again, and then you're even paying higher fees. So we want to make sure that we're really nipping it at the bottom and not even starting this process. So this is where we need to sit down. And if you need help with that, definitely reach out to us, ehsInc and me, that we can help you through the process with talking with your CEO if he's not willing to. So we want to make sure that our written plans have housekeeping, medical surveillance, and practices that can result in not having fines. So here's another graph with the penalties in California. And the willful companies ignore known hazards. So that's what willful means. You know the hazard and you willfully did not protect your employees. So we have seen over 162,000 per violation. If you have not heard, OSHA also now every year is updating their fines in January. So these fines will keep growing. So we want to make sure that we tackle this right away. There's also a pulmonary function test, reveals lungs capacity and if it's declining. X-rays classified by B readers can show early signs before symptoms develop. And ETS, initial employee exposure monitoring, must be done and repeated every 12 months. So I like this slide because you can see is where the alveolus sacs are. And as we have it breathing into our lungs or nose, it goes way down into the alveola and you can never get rid of it. So we want to make sure that we're not even breathing in this because even if we're lower than the PEL, we're still getting exposure. And over time, it can permanently cause lung damage. And we're going to keep talking about how it stays in your lung even when you're done work. Say you worked in construction for 10 years and now you're in a new company. It's still going on. So let's talk about first is different exposure monitors that you can get. There is personal aerosol monitors and then also real-time Trolex real-time silica monitors, mobile apps for silica control plans, documents, inspections, and training logs. So I think nowadays there's lots of things that we can use to help us in our as we're busy safety managers. And we have lots more to deal with than just silica dust. So here's respiratory protection. Different PAPRs with hoods provided high-level protection against silica dust by delivering filter air to use through a loose-fitting hood. Ideal for high exposure environments like stone fabrication and sandblasting. Full face reusable respiratories with P100 filters offer both respiratory and eye protection with a tight seal and high efficiency particle filters, suitable for tasks generating moderate to high silica dust levels. Half-face reusable respirators with P100 filters, a compact and economical option for providing efficient filtration against silica particles, appropriate for low exposure tasks with proper fitting and training. So the first thing you need to do is see what exposure you're having, how much, where your action and your PEL level is. So like I said, I've been in the industry for 10 years and I actually did a lot of due diligence, diving into different companies. And there is a lot of great tools out there that hook, or a lot of vacuums and wet stuff that hooks right into the tools itself. And there's no dust at all. So here's a picture of one of my employees. When they're drilling, you don't see any dust. And that's where, if you drive by as a safety manager or a leader, you're driving by your site, do you see any dust? Because that's exactly what OSHA's going to see. They're driving by, they're looking for dust, and then that's when they're going to stop. So dust control methods, reverse air cleaning. It's most important for any dust collection unit. By reversing dust that accumulates can shaken free from the filter and allowing the collection unit to operate at its fullest capacity. Again, HEPA filters and vacuums are a must. I worked with Hilti. I bought a lot of Hilti products, but there is actually really a lot of good products out there. Wet cutting is also possible. Wet cutting the work surface before cutting decreases silica dust airborne. And wash stations. Employees must provide wash facilities. So here's some resources for you guys. You can click on the QR code for sources for OSHA Table 1. If you haven't heard of OSHA Table 1, it kind of gives you some methods on how you can use some engineering controls and practice control methods for silica. So, and like Eric said, you will be getting this slide. So in many construction jobs, we have short but high exposure to silica. Every time you inhale silica dust, it's like inhaling fine broken glass that scars your lung, and it adds up over time. So that's pretty, when you say broken glass, you're like, I would never eat a Coke bottle. You know, it has glass when I break it. So we want to make sure that everybody's informed of really how dangerous silica is. If you have high exposure, you have someone working in a construction site, and they are working, say, for 5 years. They may be working for a short time in their career in silica dust, but it's still in there, like the video said. Even though the job task has stopped, it still can cause lung damage over time. So that's what we want to make sure that our employees, no matter if they're temporary or seasonal, we're protecting everybody. So here's some high-risk trades for Cal OSHA in our area. Concrete top fabrication, a lot of engineering quartz. Foundry workers, refractory, sandblasting in shipyards, and industry maintenance, landscapers. We also have some case studies from Cal OSHA that were cited. Cal OSHA cited 9 employers in the Sun Valley area, and there was a whole article on this. You can definitely pull up and read if you want more information. In August 2004, Cal OSHA conducted a major enforcement action targeting engineer stone fabrication shops in Sun Valley, a neighborhood in Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley. This region has been identified as a center of California's silicosis crisis due to high concentration of stone fabrication facilities. So why Sun Valley? Sun Valley is home to numerous businesses that fabricate engineering stone countertop material that contains up to 95% of crystalline silica. Inadequate dust suppression, poor ventilation, and lack of proper respiratory protection has led to high rates of silica exposure among workers. Enforcement action summary: Cal OSHA cited following 9 employers in Sun Valley, and a few of the companies were Grasper Marble and Tile, Valley Marble, Nacho Brothers Marble is just some of the few of the cases that were found in this. So we want to make sure everybody understands silica and how dangerous it is. Please reach out to us if you have any other questions. If you're not getting support in your company, if you do have silica dust, and we can definitely help you.